All right. Welcome, everyone. This is Relevant Conversation number 3. I'm your host, Patrick Baker, and my co host, Laurie Dubois, is joining me today. And we're here to talk about social media and how you show up and how much it matters. So, anyhow, Laurie, if you would, please introduce our topic and our guests.
Sure. First of all, thank you everyone for being here. Thank you especially to our panelists. We're looking forward to a really fun conversation and social media, how you show up. That's kind of a broad topic, isn't it? And it can take a lot of different directions. So we're prepared to kind of go anywhere. But first, we want to introduce everyone. Let everyone have a minute or two to introduce themselves. And I'm just going to go by who I see in the grid. So we are going to start with Joyce Weistel. And Joyce, we're not hearing you. Okay.
So I'm Joyce Weistel. I own Boomers, Boomers, social media tutor. And what I do is I help people, especially those over 55, to get their act together on LinkedIn, to know how in the heck to use LinkedIn once they have their profile more or less ship-shape. I can also help people with Facebook. My main group that I help are business owners and also job seekers. I'm here today because I'm really interested in what the other people have to say. I'm not an activist by nature, as I said before, yet I have opinions and I express them sometimes. So I'd like to hear what other people have to say. I have a little story to tell at some point when it comes up about a post I put up on LinkedIn just this morning.
Great. Cool. Thank you, Joyce. Thanks for being here. Okay, next, Amanda Mundo.
Hello, everyone. So, as Laurie said, my name is Amanda Mundo, and my business is called Social Hero Brands, based out of sunny Las Vegas, Nevada. And we bring your business to life online by helping you discover not only your customers' online journey, but also their experience so you could properly market, capture, convert, and engage your audience. So, I'm really excited to be here. I really feel like we're going to have a phenomenal conversation. And I'm really looking forward to it.
Great. Thanks, Amanda. Okay, next we will jump to Jamie Sarchet.
Thank you so much. I am so excited to be here. I am the director of pre-planning at Feldman Mortuary in Denver. It's a family-owned funeral home, the oldest one in Colorado. I am an activist, both in real life and quite honestly online. And I'm just really grateful to be here. Thank you.
Great. See, this is shaping up to be really fun already. Okay, next we have Ayanna King.
Thanks, and hello, everyone. My name is Ayanna King, and I am the CEO and founder of Maximum Communications. I host workshops nationwide, and I teach business leaders really, I teach them about bias so they can really cultivate the diverse, innovative, inclusive, equitable teams of tomorrow. And I am a reformed social media lover. I really hate it, but I do use it. Good to be here.
Great. Thanks, Ayana. And we also have Simler.
Hi, everyone. I'm so thankful to be here. My name is Simler. My company is Shaky Yogi LLC. I'm actually undergoing a rebrand right now, so stay tuned. But I'm a trauma mindful business coach, and I do one-on-one and group coaching. I do workshops. I'm also an Instagram expert. So I actually got called an activist for the first time the other day when I was on a podcast. So I guess I will receive that and say I'm also a bit of an activist. I just try to teach everybody in my community that they can create results sustainably from a space of embodiment and joy. And I would like everyone to consider giving a middle finger to manipulative business practices and really, drop the hustle and embrace humanity instead.
Awesome. Thank you, Fee. I'm excited to have you here. When you said something about the first time you were called an activist, it reminds me of the first time I was called ma'am by a child. And I thought, oh no, am I a ma'am? So don't know how many activists. It's Joyce, you started the thing about who's an activist. But okay, before we continue, Patrick, introduce yourself.
Thanks, Laurie. And again, welcome everyone, and thanks for joining us today. I'm Patrick Baker, and my business is Prime of Life Tech. I like to call myself the technology simplifier. I work with older adults and caregivers, and I provide solutions to technical problems as well as providing training and other support. So, and Laurie, please.
Sure. I'm Laurie Dubois. I own a company called Marketing Troubadour, and I am all about helping small businesses clarify their brand and tell their story, because I believe it's impossible for anyone else to have the same story that you do. So that is what I do in my job. And I don't know if I'm an activist or not. I would like to think that I am in some regards, but that's one of the reasons that segues right into our conversation today, because I think, first of all, we would probably all agree social media is here to stay, right? I mean, it's kind of like whether or not you're using it to promote your business. And our last conversation was about using social media to promote your business. Whether or not you're using it in that way, I think there's a lot of conversation around the personal side of social media and the business side of social media. And some people keep those very separate, and some people get them messy and tangled up intentionally. And some people do that accidentally, I would say. So everyone has a little bit of a different strategy as far as that goes. But when Patrick and I were talking about this particular conversation, one of the things that we talked about was this idea of just using the last 2 years as an example, with so much social injustice and the pandemic and politics and just all of the crap basically happening in the world, and how people are treating each other or how they're not treating each other well, those kind of things, and how social media is a platform, and each social media platform can be a little bit different, but generally speaking, it's this platform where people can show up and have a voice, right? So I look at it kind of in a way of, can you use your powers for good, or do you use your powers for evil? And how, especially as entrepreneurs, how can we use our powers for good, and how can we take advantage of this platform to help promote our business, but also help promote a better world? So in a nutshell, that's what we're talking about. I know that's still a pretty big nutshell, but I think that people will have different opinions, and I guess we can just kind of dive into that now. Did you have anything to add to that overview, Patrick?
No, I want to dive right into people's opinions.
All right. Let's dive in. So first of all, and you guys jump in as you wish. We're not going to necessarily call on you. So what we would like to know is, and I touched on this just a minute ago, as business people, can we in good conscience use social media for economic gain, while simultaneously ignoring some of the problems that are existing in the world? Because I've seen, and I'm sure you all have too, a lot of people who are really considered influencers and have a very large following, and they would be very present promoting their business. And then when something happened in the world, they would either be conspicuously absent and get a lot of flack for that, or conversely, they would state their opinions and then sometimes get a lot of flack for that. So it's like, what's our responsibility socially? Anyone want to jump in?
So I'm happy to jump in. I don't know if I have an answer to what our responsibility is socially, but I'll tell you, like for me, I can't live my life if I'm not being authentic. And I think that actually really is my business brand. I help people put their funeral plans in place long before they need them. So I am teaching people how to be more comfortable talking about death. And, we live in a society that says don't. And so I'm going up against some real cultural norms by doing that. And I show up in an incredibly authentic way. That is just who I am, but I'm also trying to model that for people because this is scary and we have to show up authentically. And when I see things happening in the world, I can't not speak out about them. First of all, it would eat me up inside not to, but also I think it's absolutely wrong to sit on the sidelines. And I really believe that when one person stands up, other people stand up. And I am willing and able and sometimes compelled to stand up.
If I can piggyback off of that, I agree, Jamie. But my responsibility is to myself. My first responsibility is to myself and my family and my mental health. And so during my introduction, I said I hate social media, and I want to clear up why I said that. One of the problems that I have with social media, and I've built my business. My business is very successful. I've built my business because of social media, right? But one of the reasons I don't like social media is because it gives people an opportunity to say things they would never say to your face, to be bullies, to be racist, to be ageist, to be ableist, to be all the ists and ills of society. And when you have a large following, you know, you influence people and maybe in a way that is not positive. So when I started my business, I remember early on people telling me, well, you need to separate your business from the personal. And I thought right away, absolutely not, because I want people to know who I am as a person, what I feel, because some people I don't want to work with. And so the best way for me to vet who I want to work with and who I don't want to work with is to be true in my most authentic self. I will talk about racism. I will talk about ageism. I will talk about all of those things because I don't want to work with people who do not align with me spiritually, emotionally. All of those things are very important to me. And so I don't have a business if I cannot be myself.
Yeah. Amen. Amen. I think a lot of that goes back to that's what I tell my client, you know, my marketing clients. It's like, bring some of you into your business. And if only for the only reason, and I think Fee has mentioned this, and I know Fee mentions this on her feed and in her stories, is you don't want to work with those people who you're not aligned with. And why would you? Because it's hard enough to have your own business, right? You know, so
Yeah.
Amanda, Fee, Joyce, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's impossible to separate yourself from your business, particularly if you're like if it's just you, or if you're working like one-on-one with people. I think Ayana is right. Like we need to protect like our mental health and not bend over backwards for people who really like see the world very differently than us. And I also think like if I have the opportunity to lift up other voices on social about, for example, like the war with Ukraine and Russia right now, there are people who have a lot more wisdom and knowledge about some social issues, and I'd rather uplift their voices than try necessarily. If I think I'm just going to add to the noise, then I'd rather let other people have a platform like through my stories or share their content versus just trying to scramble and come up with something just to talk. I've realized that, and that also like protects my energy, and I think puts the best content out there, as like, the best quality content out there for my community. And I think that that's important to me. And also like it allows other people and has that really, it has that community aspect, which is what social media is all about. So when I get an opportunity to do that, I will, versus, I always ask myself, like, am I just adding to the noise, or can I like uplift other voices right now?
Yeah, I love that you say that, because as we're all talking, I'm thinking about those introverts who may not feel like they have such a voice, or maybe they haven't learned how to really use their voice in that manner. So actually leveraging someone else's voice and where you feel aligned and giving them the space to kind of talk on your platform. So people do know, you know what, I do feel this way, because there are many people that I know. I'm an extrovert. I can go out there and, and I probably use social media totally different from everyone. I have actually gone on radio silence for about 3 months now. And I've decided to make that a choice for myself, even running a business, but my business is still running, you know what I mean? And I think that's another thing a lot of people don't realize, is that you still have opportunity. I do well on doing presentations or panels and things like that. That's how I gather my clients. But I love when you said giving someone else a voice on your platform. And I think that really could speak to the introverts out there who may not, speak so loudly like the extroverts, but really would like to get their point across. So I think that was a great point to make. Thank you.
Well, I'd like to parse it out a bit amongst different social media. In fact, a lot of people who I work with, as I focus so much on LinkedIn, will just, as older people especially, I'll say 55, 60 and up, will say, well, I don't do social media. Like, I don't gamble or something. They'll like have this like negative thing. I'm like, get a life here, folks. This is something that is not going away, right?
Yeah.
So I talk about LinkedIn as an educational platform, as a place to network with each other. And in that world, you don't see as much in the way of points of view. Jamie, I see you there on LinkedIn doing it there, which is awesome. And it's not kind of my nature. As I think about it, I'm 73. So when did I go to college? During the Vietnam era. Now, my sister, who's 2 years younger, was out on the streets protesting. She was a sociology major. I was an English teacher major. So I'm much more conventional by nature than my activist sister. We're just so different, just to lay us out there. So I would write letters to the editor safely. I wasn't going to get, tear gassed or anything. So I'll just be honest. We're both from a very conservative small town, and our parents fled this town, I'll call it that, under the guise of my dad's arthritis. But really, they were closet liberals who could not survive anymore in that little town in Wisconsin. I will not name the town. They went to Arizona. So I'm throwing all this out there by way of background. So I am by nature liberal. I vote liberal. My husband's a liberal. Our whole families are liberal. But I'm not so much to be outspoken. We got kind of a 50-50 country to a degree. And the people I go with, I'm fine with working with someone whose politics are different than me. This doesn't bother me at all. So that's just a different perspective that I'll bring to this conversation.
Joyce, if I can piggyback really quickly off of you, something that I talk about in my workshops when I'm talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and more specifically when I'm talking about empathy and allyship, and because of that, activism. One thing about activism is this, okay? Not everyone who says they're an activist or an ally who claims to be is, right? So to me, I think that taking part in peaceful marches is very important, okay? I think getting out in the streets is very important. However, I think it's way more important that you march your ass in your living room, okay? And you talk to your people, the people that you have influence with, your family members, your friends, your church congregation. Ooh, there's no hate like church hate. I think that that is most important. So that is the way that I use social media. Specifically, I think I show myself most, ironically, not on Facebook, not on Instagram, not even on TikTok, but on LinkedIn, because I feel like those people are more open to hearing, and they are less likely to want to start a fight. And that doesn't mean it doesn't happen, but I just feel like my influence is with people who are in professional circles, because if I can influence people in professional circles to change their mind, they don't leave that at work, right? They take it into their homes and they take it into their communities. So I use social media very intentionally, and I use it that way.
So that's such a great point, Ayana. And I've been using LinkedIn a lot more these days too, and showing up very authentically there as well. And the other thing that I've been doing, especially from a DEI perspective, I know a lot of people in diverse communities in my political life, and I'm really an incredibly good networker. in my professional life and personal life. And what I've tried to do is really diversify my LinkedIn contacts and really try and lift up people and help them make connections, people that I might not know professionally, you know, to try and use those connections in a way to lift up people who might not have, you know, entry points into some of the places I have entry points.
Yeah.
I think also because several of you are mentioning too, you know, lifting up other people's voices, and Fee mentioned this first, and I think, you know, this whole idea of when you know better, you do better, you know, because it is true that our circles are usually, you know, they have boundaries to them. And depending on how hard we try to go outside of our circles to meet new people, or to have more diverse friends, or to just welcome other opinions, I think sometimes it's an intentional thing. Sometimes, even if you feel like you're not good at that, I appreciate the people who go out of their way to share other voices that introduce me to new ideas. And Fee, you mentioned, you know, the war in Ukraine right now, and someone, because I feel exactly like you do. There's so much I want to say, but am I an expert? I know I'm not an expert. I don't want to say anything that's incorrect. You know, I have opinions, but when you find people, and somebody had posted something the other day from a woman, Sharon McMahon, her Instagram handle is Sharon Says So, and she's a government teacher. And so I don't think she's in the classroom anymore, but she's very highly regarded. And she has been putting out a lot of content and literally asks people every day, what do you want to know about? And then she's helping inform. And I've seen a lot of different people that I follow now posting her things and pointing to her because they regard her as that voice. So I'm curious what you guys think about sharing other people's voices, and can you do that intentionally, or how would you even make that part of a strategy, I guess?
Well, you mentioned a teacher who's sharing information about the war and asking her audience for input. Dr. Heather Cox Richardson, she's a professor from, I want to say, Boston University. I could be screwing that up. She has a daily letter that she posts to LinkedIn. I'm sorry, to Facebook, and I think other sites. I don't think she's on LinkedIn, actually. And but she also does live videos with on Facebook, where she asks the audience in real time, you know, for questions or response to things in the chat and that sort of thing. Anyway, having that kind of expertise available to get insights into things like January 6th, like other things that are going on in the world, like the war and so on, that's just huge. And being able to use that to spread the word about things that you care about, whether just using her as an example, but other folks probably also come to mind for others in the audience or on the panel.
I do a lot of news sharing. So I'll find an article in the Washington Post or in the New York Times or whatever, and I pull out, you know, a quote from it or whatever, and I maybe do a sentence of my own thoughts on it, but usually it's something from that article. And I find those things that like speak to me personally, speak to me in a professional way, trying to help people be less afraid of death. One of the things I'm going to post today, speaking of Ukraine, I was listening to The Daily, the podcast, The Daily, and they were interviewing a photographer who took a picture of this family that was, you know, trying to escape and got killed because the families are being targeted. And I just thought, wow, that really brings together so many things that I care about. And so that's my intention, is to kind of raise up those things that, again, other people don't see. It's not typically my views, but you can tell what my views are based on what I raise up, I think.
Of course. Yeah, I think also there's a couple of people on TikTok that that come to mind. There's one woman who does under the desk news, where she's literally under a desk, like on her elbows like this. I personally, she's a young woman. She's a queer creator. And I, as somebody, and a lot of folks in my audience too, are like pretty sensitive to the news, and I get overstimulated easily. So I can't turn on like the TV and have all the news come at me at once. It like literally makes it hard to go to sleep at night. So I will typically like just tune in to people that I know are getting like the best information out there. And then sometimes like check it against, articles on like the New York Times or Washington Post. Also, the Washington Post has like a really excellent TikTok as well. That's very entertaining and very informative. And then they also do a really good job at telling the kids or, TikTok people how to make sure, how if certain videos that come up on your feed are actual like real videos versus like false. So they do a really good job of that. And so those are a couple of people that come to mind as far as like consumption of voices on social media and what I would share. And when I'm not sharing to my story or like via email, I will like text people or like show my husband in person. So I am sharing. It's just not always like visible to my larger audience. But there's definitely like voices out there that can and are worth being shared, even if it's not like really visible. I'm still sharing.
Well, and you touched on the whole disinformation subject, which is obviously really huge in social media. It seems to me, I don't know. You tell me. I'm noticing a little bit more disinformation bleeding into LinkedIn than I have noticed in the past. Certainly more. Well, I mean, Facebook is like the epitome of disinformation. But I mean, anyone have any thoughts on that?
One question I haven't seen myself disinformation, but one of the things I've been thinking a lot about is how people want to do their own research, but their own research might be sort of like, I'm going to see what Nicki Minaj has to say about coronavirus, and then I'm going to make my decisions based on that. I think that's, I don't think it's disinformation. I mean, not like it's not created to do that. But it is this idea that we're all experts.
Yeah. Well, my response to that is, well, what lab do you work for?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
But it is amazing how many people do not have the knowledge and not, some of it's not, they're not interested in it, but I have a librarian degree. That's my geeky thing. I've never worked in a library. However, it's very interesting how people think and act like they're very interested in research, and they think they're doing primary research, but I think we all know, I would say all of us in this room know, that when you go look for something and you find one thing, because research shows if people Google something, they don't even care if the results are accurate. They just want results. And if you get one result, you're just going to keep getting fed more of what you've already found. So I think it's really easy to go down that path. And I think there is a difference between misinformation and disinformation, right? In the intention of it. But I think, sometimes I almost feel like it's a responsibility, which I will admit I'm not really doing anything about, of trying to train people to realize what is a credible source, or point out something, and I have to be careful. I don't know. I'm curious of all of you, if you ever find yourself, like I'll look at something, I'll be scrolling on Instagram and all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to share that. And I literally have to stop myself and tell myself, I better go check that out before I do, because otherwise then I'm just part of the problem.
Yes. So if I can add, Laurie, what you're really talking about is confirmation bias, right? People find stuff that supports whatever opinion they have.
Yes.
So I want to talk for a second about this word about being an expert at something. So Fee, if you say you're an expert at Instagram, I believe you, girl, because I'm not. All right. I believe you. However, when we're talking about matters of the heart, when we're talking about empathy, when we're specifically talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, you know, when I have clients come to me, they usually will come to me and say, I found you, or so-and-so said that you're an expert at this. And I am always, and I think Patrick, you and I have had this conversation before, I'm always flattered by that, right? I say, thank you so much. However, I'm only an expert at being a Black woman in this body, okay, for 43 years. Even I have to do some very intentional work about learning about other people from other marginalized communities, right? So I have to be intentional about where I find my information. You know, I have a heavy tendency to lean on CNN or MSNBC sometimes. I'm very aware of that. So what I've been doing instead is looking at NPR, even looking at the BBC, trying to find as much information as I can so that I'm not falling victim to confirmation bias or groupthink because of the people that I associate with, right? And so Amanda said something that was really important. She said, I went silent for 3 months. I've done that on several platforms. I've said, I'm not posting today. Maybe I won't post till next week. Because the other thing is, the other reason the other thing that bothers me about social media is this pull to have to post content. And I'm gonna tell you, sometimes people don't have nothing to say, but here they are posting and influencing people. Sit down, be quiet, listen, learn. We don't always have to be the talkers, even when we are the experts, right? Sometimes the really smart thing to do is recharge. You know, I see people posting about happiness and joy all the time. And you know, some of these people are the people who are the most isolated. They are feeling, you know, the saddest. I saw a post yesterday on Facebook that really broke my heart. And this is somebody that has thousands and thousands of followers there. And he said, I am alone. I am having suicidal ideations right now. You know, this shit is fake. It's fake. And for those of us who understand who we are in my spirit, in my body, we have to be real about that. So we have to, I feel like we are the gatekeepers. And sometimes the way you're a really good gatekeeper is not by standing and guarding the gate yourself, but by closing that shit up. Close it. And I don't know. That's just how I feel for me and the way that I use social media. I'm very careful. I'm very intentional. And sometimes I got to take a break. So when you said that, Amanda, I feel you. And I feel you. I go days and days without posting on Facebook because I absolutely loathe that app. However, I know that it's an app that I also need. It's where some of my clients are. It's definitely where some of my friends and my family are. So sometimes there's a need for me to be there. So we have to be able to create balance. And I don't know that we're doing such a good job.
Yeah, it's tough when when the apps are engineered to be so sticky.
Yes.
And I think also another thing that like pulls people in is like there's this sense of false urgency. And I think it's because of like the dopamine rush that we get from like when we interact with like social media. It's like real, and it sometimes hijacks our nervous system, like these apps or these platforms. And then also like good marketing can, you know, create a sense of urgency. So I think it's just knowing sales psychology for me, like really helps me be like, is this a false sense of urgency right now? Why am I being pulled for this? Oh, it's probably a little bit of like my addiction or my brain right now. And like just being aware of that, I'm like, okay, well, I don't need to do that right now. Or like I can go outside and hug my dog instead of hopping on my phone again. So that's been something I have been aware of and that I share with people. I'm like, if you feel like you need to check Facebook or Instagram 7 times a day, like it's made to have you do that. So just be aware. And I think also I had another thought, but you said so many good things, Ayana. Yeah, I think like
for me, it's just watch another cat video. Would you like to watch another cat video?
Yeah. I mean, the algorithm's made for that, so it can be really slippery when you get into like a weird hole. And I was, you know, I just said on my story a few days ago, like I'm. It's hard for me to do like the bare minimum. I'm like someone who's like programmed at 11 all the time, and I like tend to be a workaholic a little bit. So that's work I need to do because rest is productive, and science has proven that. But I said I am only creating content in March that brings me joy. because I am breaking up with like that sense of like, I have to create, like, for what? Like, what are you saying? Is it part of a larger strategy? Is it helping you get clients? If it's no, then maybe you can put your effort somewhere else, because we have limited resources, time, and energy. And I think it's wise to know that. So, I mean, I made a couple of things over the weekend because I was like, that's going to be really fun for me and fill my cup. And then I don't think I've posted anything. And I usually post like almost every day on Instagram. And I'm like, you know what? Not this month. I don't feel like it. I just did a huge launch. I'm doing a program right now and I don't feel like it. So that's what it's going to be.
And I
love
think
that.
that's, yeah, and just kind of piggybacking off of all three of you, Ayana, Fee, and Patrick, like getting down and real and transparent about burnout and mental health, because we are, small business owners and people at the same time. We go through real life stuff and real business stuff that it can be over consuming. And thinking about social media all by itself is just overwhelming, because it's like there is that need. You're like, okay, for my business, for my own personal, I want to do these things, and that's okay. But a lot of times I feel like we do get stuck in a corner and we feel like we don't have options. And sometimes it happens until you become really intentional about why you're doing what you're doing. And knowing that the world is not going to crumble and fall apart because you don't show up there all the time. And it proved to myself, like literally 3 months, I think one post, maybe I did 2 posts out of all those months on something personal, and the business was still going, things were still happening, and I realized, like, my mental health, nothing is going to move forward if I am not okay. And that was just something that I had to really come into, to accept. And when I tell you the transparency, Laurie and Joyce were there with me when I was talking at the Soulful Entrepreneur Summit. I was very transparent about my journey. I did a small business presentation about being on social media, and told them, well, I haven't been on it for 3 months, but these are the things that you can do, and being completely transparent about it, because a lot of times we have this false idea that if we show up not perfect, then everyone's going to think we aren't credible. And I'm sorry, guys, at the end of the day, and I'm just speaking in general, we are people. We're not perfect. We're going to make mistakes. And the thing about it is just kind of getting up, taking care of yourself. And one thing, and I heard, I think it was Fee who said filling up her saucer. And I said this at the summit, is from, I heard this from a wonderful woman named Naima McCallop. She said, you know what? One thing you have to remember to do is you always fill from your saucer. You fill up your saucer, but you only give from your, what is it? It's the sauce. No, you fill, sorry, you fill up your cup. You fill up your cup and you give from your saucer. That
The overflow.
the overflow is what you give out. And you continue to fill up your cup. And I had to learn that. It was a huge, huge thing for me to learn. But I was always giving from my cup. Always giving from my cup. And my saucer remained dry because I never even gave it a chance to overflow. So just a thought.
Wow, that was a deep and important thought, Amanda. Thank you. And what a great analogy, too. You only give up when you're full. I think that's amazing. And I will say also that showing up in a really authentic way and being transparent and really being honest is going to draw people to you. That's what happens, is that we all are drawn to authenticity. We're afraid to be authentic. Brene Brown talks about that all the time, that we're drawn to people being authentic, but we're afraid to show up authentically. So it's so important that we are modeling the ability to be authentic, because that will draw people to us and make it seem, make people understand it's safe.
Yeah, I was just thinking really quickly about when I recently fell on my face, February 6th, and I just looked like I'd been in a bar fight. I mean, this whole side of my face was just like incredibly bruised.
Oh, yeah.
And I took a picture of myself on Zoom, and I put a post up on LinkedIn and Facebook, and I said, you know what? If you look like this, show up anyway. go to the places you go. If you have to explain a little bit, fine. And my little hashtag was just show up. And it gets like hundreds, thousands of views. Like last year when I broke my wrist and I had my little journey about that healing was quite the loving. I mean, I felt so loved on Facebook and LinkedIn, especially even for people caring about what was going on with me. And I would have little messages with that too. So I really believe in that authentic, like 150% or whatever. But I was thinking about comments. We've talked about posting. We've talked a little bit about comments. And that's me kind of coming in a kind of more nuanced way. Maybe I won't necessarily make the post about an issue, but like I have a friend who talks a lot about diversity, equity, inclusion on LinkedIn. So I will periodically comment on her post or maybe share it. But I think commenting actually gives more energy to the post and will bring other people that into the conversation, like, oh, that's interesting. They'll see that and maybe they don't even follow that person, in their feed, but they'll say, whoa, she's got pretty deep stuff there. So
Joyce,
and always we need to remember that everybody on LinkedIn can see all these comments unless we change our settings. But this group here, why would we do that? So I do think we need to be real, just be aware, mindful that these comments are really essentially public.
Well,
when you say it brings more energy to the post, would you say more about that? I don't know that.
I mean, versus sharing. And other people like Laurie can speak to this too, and Amanda, of course, others, maybe everyone here. So when you share something over there, that's like you aren't not jumping into that stream of conversation around that post, Jamie. When you comment, it is literally will lift up, will get more eyeballs on that post when you comment versus when you only, let's say, share it over to yours, to your page. That's been, I think, pretty well documented. So that's the biggest gift you can give to that person. So maybe you're not quite ready to say that directly, but you comment and that it gets more eyeballs on it.
Thank you.
And I think also the other thing that it does too is it gives us as individuals the opportunity to be authentic as well and to say, thank you for sharing. I never thought of it that way. Or thank you for sharing. I really wanted to learn about that, but I'm afraid to ask. Or thank you. Like I posted something a year or two ago about really wanting to be an ally and feeling like my attempts were really feeble. Like I found this list of Denver Black-owned women businesses, and I really wanted to, do business with some of those businesses just to support them. And then I posted from a very authentic way of, I feel like that's such a feeble attempt. And it was really interesting, the comments that I got back. And I didn't do it to like, okay, criticize me or okay, make me feel better. But it did make me feel real, and that it was okay to be authentic in what I said. So I think the comments is another place where you can do things. And I just wanted to mention, I can't remember who said it. You guys have this conversation is wonderful. But someone mentioned, sharing information. And I think it was Jamie that talked about if you share information and then you add a little sentence or add your opinion, because as a marketing consultant, I will always tell people, don't just 100% share other people's stuff. You should have some of your own content because it's your own thoughts and your own opinions and all the information that you knew. So have a balance of user-generated content from other people and content that you generate yourself. But I think when you share something, if you just take a moment to add to that and say either why you're sharing it or your opinion on it, it makes it that much more meaningful.
Ooh, I'm the only one here who's not really an expert in this kind of stuff. And I love hearing I'm doing it well. Thanks.
You're doing it right.
And I think it's because most of us, when we're doing well, why? It's because we're showing up and we're showing up authentically, right? And all of you are saying that like over and over. It's like, be yourself, take care of yourself, kind of guard yourself and show up authentically. I mean,
Go ahead, Patrick.
I'm sorry. I wanted to just touch on something that Amanda said fairly early on in the conversation. You touched on introverts. I'm going to represent for the introverts on the in the room today. A few months ago, well, actually, even before a few months ago, really kind of when I got started doing the marketing for my business and doing more networking and that sort of thing. I I had this huge fear in my mind about going live on like what we're doing right now. And anyhow, and so I essentially forced myself to go live and just talk about the fact that it was scared the shit out of me that I was live in that particular moment. And I'm even starting to feel some anxiety about that right now, just talking about it. So the point being that it's hard to show up and be authentic when you're not maybe naturally equipped to do that. And so, pushing yourself, pushing your own against your own limits, I guess, limitations or perceived limitations is huge, I think.
This stuff is a muscle. If you do it, if you work at it, it grows.
Right.
And also, I think you get, and I just heard this on a podcast this morning when I was listening to at the gym about not only do you get better, and you do, but you start to care less. You don't care about if your hair is messed up, or you don't care. And I noticed that in just, doing like these 5-minute trainings every single week. I just don't care anymore. I care about the content, but I don't care if, it sounds like I have a cold, or if I wore the same shirt I wore last Tuesday, or some of those things that I used to care about.
Yeah, that's something that comes up with my clients is like being trauma mindful is like, can I say it's a mind block? Can I say it's trauma? I don't know. My clients know themselves best, definitely more than I do. So I just need to get curious and have a conversation and ask them, and then they can tell me. Some people really do have resistance to showing up because it's vulnerable, because they feel unsafe. And so there are other options. I'm like, okay, well, Clubhouse, you don't have to be seen. Newsletters, you don't have to be seen. So there's options that can still have that element of like social without you having to, maybe jump into a cold pool and go live on LinkedIn or Instagram. So I always just, toss it to them and then say, how does that feel? Because there are so many ways to promote your business. And I see here that Todd.
I was just going to say, someone bring up Todd's comment.
Yeah, he said, that's something I find quite frustrating, how people are not supportive of others' endeavors. It's difficult to find a supportive community. It seems people are too caught up in their own projects or endeavors. It really is not difficult in my mind. Todd, I'd love to know some more context. I'm not sure if you're a business owner, but it seems like he's frustrated about people maybe not having as much of a conversation or back and forth on social versus like just promotion. And I think that's a really good take, because if you're just promoting on social, it's going to be one note and people are going to get bored. They really need that, like that context of who you are, the story behind like who you are, why you started your business. Like storytelling is really compelling on social media or like anywhere, because we're wired for that as humans. So yeah, I think that would be like a tip for people. If it's just promotion over and over again, people are going to just tune out.
Well,
sorry, Jamie.
Ayana, go ahead.
I just wanted to say something. Patrick, you talked about introverts, and Amanda talked about being an extrovert. We don't talk about that. Most people are somewhere in the middle, though. They're ambiverts, right? I am. I can be very energetic, and I can go out and I can work a crowd and I can do all that. And then when I get home, I am dead. Okay. I would rather be at home almost 100% of the time, because home is where my cup is filled. Home is where I feel peace. Home is where I feel safe. And so when you talked about going live and the anxiety of that, I feel that like I can do this, and maybe some people will say I do it well. Maybe other people will say I need help with it. but it was a real source of anxiety for me. After I had been doing it for almost a full year, I stopped a show I was doing it, literally.
Yeah.
First of all, I lied, okay? I lied and told everybody I would be back. Patrick, you know now that I lied. Because I said I had this Sunday show that was going. And I really enjoyed doing the show. I really enjoyed going live. But I'm telling you, I would wake up, I would feel anxious. It wasn't fun for me. It wasn't fun for me. And so I had to be honest in saying, listen, I just posted about this morning. If it does not add, then it subtracts, right? Simple math. If it doesn't multiply, it divides. And I was not seeing, forget about my business growth. My business is going to be all right. I was not doing well. I was not doing well. And so I think sometimes it's perfectly okay, just like Amanda said, for social media, taking a break. I think it's fine to just back off. Back off when your mental health, and you know when your mental health is not well, you know when you're not well, when you are feeling constant anxiety, when there's a knot in your stomach every time you do something that you think you love, we've got to use some emotional intelligence to say, oh, I'm in the danger zone. This is not good for me.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing I think that comes up in it, what you're saying brings this up for me too, is that idea of perfectionism.
Yes.
You don't have to be perfect about this. And Laurie, you talking about wanting to be an ally and not being sure how to do it. I think that really comes up for me. It actually says in my LinkedIn profile, I am an aspiring anti-racist. And I grew up being taught, and Patrick and Laurie and Joyce, I imagine, Fee, maybe this was true for you too, that I was taught talking about race is rude, that you should be colorblind. And so the idea of learning to talk about this, it is, I'm going to drop the first F-bomb. It's fucking terrifying.
Yeah.
And I have just learned to accept I'm going to step in it. Sometimes I am going to screw up. Sometimes I'm going to say something wrong. I don't have all the lenses. And now I'm getting to a place, and I don't always do this well, but I am getting to a place that when I get called out or hopefully called in, I can receive that in gratitude and say, oh, I didn't see it this way. Thank you so much for lending me your glasses. There are some things I do not have the lens for unless someone shares their glasses with me.
I love the way you put that.
Yeah, me too.
That was beautiful. And you, at the end of the day, and Ayana brought this up, at the end of the day, as empathetic as you can possibly be, you still only have the perspective of who you are in your body, which was beautiful. And Todd, thanks for being here, Todd, and having some comments on here that I am looking at. And I do have met Todd before and talked a little bit about this at the summit that we were at. But I think one of the things he's mentioning, I just wanted to touch on this, is that there is a lot of negative feelings on social, right? And the more people step into that influencer space, or I shouldn't even say that. If you have 5 people following you, you're in an influencer space for those 5 people, right? So it doesn't really matter how big you are. So I think this idea that there's always going to be people that don't like you is true. And to just say, oh, have a thick skin, it doesn't matter, can be really difficult, because when we put ourselves out there, it's like rejection is, to talk about your F-bombs. Rejection is fucking hard. It's hard. And so we don't do it. And I think, and speaking back to Brene Brown too, being brave enough to put ourselves out there, we usually respect that in somebody else. So when you're attracting some people that don't like you, if no one likes what you're saying, I'd say you're in the wrong crowd. You've got the wrong people, right? Because you eventually will get the people that like you. If it's an outlier, it's an outlier. And sometimes the truth is you just have to let those things go, because if it's just one person here or there, it's about them. It's not about you. It's about them.
And you got to remind yourself that.
Yes, over and over. Amanda.
Can I quickly say that being your true self and speaking your truth changes lives?
Yes.
Mhm.
And I say
Amen.
that because, Patrick, you going out there and saying, I am terrified right now, but I'm doing this thing
Mhm.
and here I am. You might have just changed someone's life right then who said,
Mhm.
who thought they couldn't do it. And then they go and make a 5-second video and they're still alive at the end. And they're like, okay, I can do it too.
Yeah.
And there are, yeah, I'm
Mhm.
still here. And so when you're there to speak your truth, no, even if you don't know, even if you don't have someone message you or you've changed their life, because I've had a scenario where someone's come up to me later on in life and said, hey, I remember this thing that you said or you did. And you changed my life. You changed and it may not be their life, but you changed the way they looked at something,
Yeah.
which then changed the trajectory of their life
Mhm.
thereafter. And so know that you are a change. You make a difference when you are authentic and when you are your true self.
Yeah.
Amen. There,
Yeah.
Indeed.
there we go.
And Todd, change your thoughts, change your mind, says Todd. Todd's an author. He lived for a long time in China. So
Right.
find him on LinkedIn. He's a
Yes,
fascinating guy.
hi, Todd. I didn't put 2 and 2 together.
That's who that is.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yes.
Very cool.
Wow.
We're at the top of the hour, and I know that folks have other commitments. So I just want to go around the panel one more time and just ask, does anyone have any final thoughts that they'd like to share with the panel and our audience?
I have some thoughts. Oh,
Go ahead.
oh, thank you. Okay. So my only thought is what was really on my mind this morning, which I did post about on LinkedIn, and it was about the energy and vibration from which you give out and receive. It's a constant, right? We are always giving out energy. We are always receiving it. So be careful of what you are sowing. Be careful of what comes through your eyes and through your ears. Be careful of who you spend your time with, because all of that affects you. And if you're a person who is hell bent on revenge, okay, I understand that some people are hell bent on revenge and you got a right to be mad. I feel you, okay? However, I'm telling you that it is difficult to be joyous and to be angry at the same time. Choose joy. However you can, choose it. Choose it.
Thank you.
Mhm.
That was
Yeah.
awesome.
I don't know how those can coexist.
Oh, yeah. Would you rather be right or would you rather be happy? Also comes to mind as a variation. I like yours a lot, Ayana.
Yeah.
I've learned a lot today. This has been incredibly helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Fee,
everybody.
you were going to say something also.
Yeah. So I, taking a step back to like, being an aspiring anti-racist, I think like for me personally, that's a lot of like part of, I think, my work as an entrepreneur and as like a leader. I have 2 books on my desk I haven't gotten to read yet, but so you want to talk about race by
Yes.
Oluo Oluo, like blew me away.
Luo.
There's, this one called White Fragility, and this one
Mhm.
called Do Better, and it's by Rachel Ricketts. So I have these on my desk, on my reading list, because there's quite a few of those now. But yeah, I think like committing to that work, just, can you read like 1 book a quarter to help with
Mhm.
that? So that's something I would do, because I always question, I'm a person of color, but I always ask like, can I do the work versus asking maybe someone of color to explain it to me, because they've like already done enough. So yeah, that's like some resources I wanted to share. And then also, I tell this to people, like if someone makes you feel like shit online, unfollow immediately. You're trying to run a business. You don't have time for it. So
That's right.
you don't need anybody's permission. Just do it.
I think that's a good example of doing your own research.
Mhm.
Right. Yeah. That research is pretty self-explanatory, isn't it? Jamie, do you have any closing thoughts you wanted to share?
I just have to say, I mean, like the whole idea of fill your own cup and give from your saucer. That's
Yeah.
like, talk about changing somebody's life because you just showed up. I needed that advice. Thank you so much. That is really the greatest way to think about it for me.
Mhm.
It was for me too. That was a much needed life changer for me. And that's why I'm where I am today, because of finally taking that leap and
Mhm.
filling up my cup and giving from the saucer, not feeling guilty about it.
Yes.
Nice.
Thank you, everyone. I can tell you, this has filled my cup. This is overflowing. I actually do feel like my saucer's full too, my cup and my saucer. So I really, really appreciate the contributions of you all, and it was so. You showed up. Number one, everyone was authentic and vulnerable, and that's just so beautiful. So, thank you.
Yeah, it was great.
Patrick,
Thanks, everybody.
Everyone, thanks so much. Really appreciate you taking the time to join us today to share yourselves, your thoughts. It's not just the business piece. It's we can't really separate it. We are the business. We are what we do, and so I really appreciate your contributions today. And like I was trying to say a moment ago, I'm better for having been here. So thank you. Everyone, and we're going to end the live stream. And for everyone who took the time to watch, thank you so much. This has been Relevant Conversation. We'll have the stream available for a replay later today. And thank you so much for joining. Have a wonderful day, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.